As your resident good boy YouTube video essayist, it's pretty in character for me to own a pup hood. I bought it a while ago out of curiosity, but I don't ever wear it. It smells like chemicals. There's no telling how long I'm going to wear this and this. I do find it funny to own though, so I'm keeping it for now. There's an annual tradition online where a bunch of anti-gay, anti-sex Puritans pretend to care about pup play. They see an image of a guy in a pup hood at a pride parade somewhere and they start talking about how kink is evil, how wearing a pup hood in public is basically assault, and how kinky people are the reason the homophobes hate us. Last year, 2024, some people were feeling real spicy and said everyone who engages in pup play is sexually attracted to animals. Now, I don't really feel the need to explain why that's stupid. It's like saying the Playboy bunnies were promoting sexual assault against rabbits. That's about as dumb as thinking kink is why homophobes hate us. If you think it is, you're either a child, in which case stop watching this, or you're in complete denial about what homophobia is, because you're searching for approval from homophobes. It happens to the best of us. Homophobia is not a rational response to anything. Bigotry is not rational. I want to talk about what pup play is, explore the fantasies surrounding it, and determine whether or not, once and for all, I am a good boy. Woof! Alpha. What is pup play? Pup play is a form of role-playing wherein at least one person will adapt the persona of a dog. Sometimes it's a stereotypical puppy. Sometimes it's a guard dog. Sometimes it's an old lazy golden retriever in their last years whose only desire is to curl up in front of a crackling fireplace on a cold winter's day. The type of pup someone role plays as largely depends on three things: their everyday personality, their desires set free of the anxieties of day-to-day life, and the personality traits that they wish to embrace. Let's say someone is naturally quite quiet. Well, as a pup, that could continue. They could remain a bit shy and reserved, if in a space of complete acceptance, they're still inclined toward quietness. Perhaps that's how they are in 2 out of the 3 instances. But let's say they want to be louder or more outgoing. Their pup persona could very well be the exact opposite of both who they typically perform as and who they are inclined toward being anyway. But wait, you might say, doesn't that mean it doesn't have to be a sex thing? Well caught. Catching that actually puts you in danger, as dogs are famously antagonistic toward dog catchers. Maybe turn your brain off, otherwise you might get attacked by an overeager good boy. Unless you're into that kind of thing. Is it a sex thing? Is basically one of the questions on the pupspace.net Q&A page. In response to, okay, so is pup play a sexual, romantic, social, or platonic thing? They write, it can be any of those things, and pup play is different for different people. Most pups and handlers find some kind of physical and sexual gratification from it. Many also find a romantic connection, making pup play a part of a relationship. And some just want to enjoy the puppy headspace with platonic friends. There's no wrong way to be a pup. In case you really need it nailed into your head, which is a very good boy trait of yours, here's how Quispe Lopez puts it. Pup play is a subsect of BDSM that involves role-playing as a pup, sometimes in a group of other pups, a pack, or with a handler or trainer. This process is all about tapping into your primal self as a pup and engaging in an authentic type of play. Think rolling around on the ground, playing fetch, and generally releasing the stress of human existence in exchange for the euphoria and full-body experience of being a pup. Primality. Play. Authenticity? If you are an outsider looking in because you're a voyeur perv or a Taylor Swift, the use of authentic might be a tad confusing to you. The majority of pups don neoprene masks. They go around acting and barking and woofing. Woof. They play fetch. They adopt pup names. They pretend. How is that authentic? What even is authenticity? Well, let's be fair to Lopez. They didn't say authentic. They said authentic type of play. I'm saying authentic, though. Pup play is a form of authenticity via invention. It is a mask which makes specific parts of one transparent. Essays are similar. You develop your authorial voice, which is a form of performance, and yet you use it to often reveal parts of your inner self. The synthetic crafts the authentic. Homo ex machina. So pup play, shockingly I know, is a form of acting where one embraces the persona of some sort of dog, whatever that means to them. Now, when some people unfamiliar with or instinctively averse to pup play hear that, their first bad faith accusation is to accuse those who engage in it, especially those who engage with pups without themselves being pups, human handlers and owners, if you will, of engaging in or desiring to engage in bestiality. Is it wrong to dismiss that accusation as bad faith and idiotic? No, because it is both of those things. But to put this in the most clickbaity, stay tuned way possible, if it were an expression of such a thing, would that be bad? I don't mean this in a Twitter twink hot take discourse machine type of way. I'm not defending animal abuse, but, well, we'll get to it, so put a pin in that. Speaking of putting pins in things, beta, BDSM. Let's explore pup play a little bit deeper. So deep that by the end of the video, I'll get 2 black bands tattooed around my arm right below my shoulder. If you know, you know. If you don't look it up. Bondage, discipline, domination, submission, sadism, masochism. A bunch of words the algorithm loves that I'm using right now. Pup play, a variation of pet play, is an offshoot of BDSM, so it's subject to the same sort of essentializing assumptions about category distribution as every other aspect of sexuality. Handlers, the human partners in pup play who take care of or own one or more pups, are, much like tops, assumed to be dominant. Pups, especially when involved with a handler, are assumed to be submissive. This is semi-true, but isn't guaranteed. You've probably seen people in real life who are obviously not in control of their pets. If anything, they seem to be a delivery system for pets, play, and food more so than an owner. That same dynamic can play out in pup-handler combinations, even if handlers are more often the dominant in the scenario. Let's talk about that dynamic a little. How does handler-pup differ from big little, daddy boy, daddy son, dom sub, and master slave dynamics? Does it? Browsing through Reddit threads discussing pup play, it seems several people distinguish it by the focus on play and gentleness. When you hear dom sub, if you're not particularly involved in kink, you might assume it means sadist masochist, master slave. You might assume it's about performed selfishness or cruelty. That's not to say it isn't, it very well can be. In many dom-sub dynamics, the dominant partner performs some sort of dehumanization against the submissive partner. This can come in the form of degradation, dirty talk, denial, certain sorts of showers, perhaps. The dehumanization itself is often the sexual aspect of the scenario. It's through this dehumanization that the dom is able of doing certain acts which the submissive craves for whatever reason they crave it. It's a perpetuating cycle. You dehumanize in order to sexualize, which in turn sexualizes the dehumanization. On and on it goes. Pup play carries an obvious dehumanizing aspect. The human pup is actively engaging in animalification. Put a pin in that. But this occurs before sexualization. Elsewise, what people would find kink in would be turning people into pups. It'd be the act of getting them to embrace the hood in the first place. But most pup play scenes involve the pup being in the headspace and performance before engaging in anything sexual. So, what's going on here? It carries typical dom-sub relationship dynamics. There tends to be a clear hierarchy. There is one who gives orders and one who receives. Good boy is a sentence pups and non-pup subs both enjoy. Sexualized dehumanization and other BDSM acts often occur during pup play. There's a difference, but it's subtle, strange, right on the tip of your tongue. Pup play is play. Mind-blowing revelation there, I know. I'm just one of the most preeminent scholars on YouTube. Woof woof. To a degree, all intercourse, especially all non-vanilla intercourse, is a form of play. True. But the spirit of play as a concept is integral to the pup experience from what I've gathered. It's kind of about playing. I'm very boring, so I wouldn't really know about playing or having fun, but this means the dynamic between a pup and a handler has to be somewhat different from other dom-sub dynamics. It is, by its nature, like most forms of pet play, more caretaking than master-slave implies. A pet owner loves their pet. You discipline them to teach them tricks or keep them safe and healthy, but otherwise, you primarily love them. You feed them, you pet them, you play with them, you take them to play with other pets, you praise them. There is just a lot of praise going on. So you could argue that pup play allows for a gentler, more performatively caring, lighthearted, play-centric version of other dom-sub dynamics. This isn't to say that sort of thing is required or relegated to pups. We also need to make clear that pup handler is not the only or even primary dynamic that occurs in pup play. From everything I've seen, from queer creators to internet questions, most pups interact with other pups. Like with wolves, pups often separate themselves into 3 categories: alphas, doms, betas, switches who often lean submissive, and omegas, subs. What's that? Oh, wolves don't really do that? Oh. Well, plenty of pups do. That sounds like something. Doesn't it sound familiar? Oh, that's right. It sounds like the Omegaverse. Gamma. ABO. Pups come in many flavors. Dom, sub, top, bottom, verse, switch, tall, short, straight, and more. This includes alphas, betas, and omegas. Do you know what the Omegaverse is? It's a subgenre of science fiction or fantasy, which primarily pops up in genre romance or erotica. In the Omegaverse, you have the genders we have here in this realm of existence, and then you have secondary genders, which determine various parts of your physiology and or personality depending on the way it's deployed in that world. But keeping to the basics, we'll say primary gender is about the feminine-masculine scale, and secondary gender is about sex characteristics and fertility abilities. You have alphas, betas, and omegas. Betas are the simplest to understand because they're regular humans. An alpha male is a more naturally dominant man, typically with more fertile seed. They exude commanding pheromones and can claim an omega with a bite on their neck, potentially, if that's that sort of world. An alpha female is very similar, though they can both get pregnant and impregnate others. That is the same for omega males, who can be impregnated by alphas and sometimes by betas or other omega men, and who can impregnate women. Then there's omega females. Like how alpha men are mostly a stereotype idealized presentation of masculinity and masculine sexual behaviors, omega women are the same for the stereotype idealized femininity and feminine sexual behaviors. Are you an alpha, a beta, or an omega? Trick question, you're none of those. Those things don't exist. The Omegaverse isn't real. If you happen to be an evil scientist working on making it real, though, hi, I'm an Omega. Gotta get it right. But also, don't make it real. That would be awful. We're not in the Omegaverse. No matter how hard my beloved tries, as a cis man, I am not going to get pregnant. Boo. Maybe a miracle is in the works. But for those who enjoy the idea of such a world, these classifications in pup play can lead to a real-world outlet for such desires. There's no such thing as an alpha male that's fake, but an alpha pup in pup play is a real thing with a real definition. Sometimes pup play stands in for something else. Sublimation. I wonder if that'll pop up later. Oh, I'm being really subtle with my foreshadowing. I put the sub in subtle. And sublimation. The roles of alpha, beta, and omega pups are far more common in pup play than actual thoughts and desires around Omegaverse play in that specific community. There is talk about putting litters in more submissive figures, but impregnation talk also tends to just be the way we gay men talk to each other in general. It's not a desire to be a woman, by the way. The reason impreg fantasies rarely involve trans men that are capable of pregnancy as the bottom, the impregnated partner, is that impreg isn't really about pregnancy at all. To fulfill the fantasy, a trans man would have to be incapable of having a child in that way, or they would have to be the top. That's a tangent for another time, I suppose. One thing you will find in common between the Omegaverse, pup play in general, dom-sub dynamics, and couples who consider themselves vanilla is a fascination with scent. Someone called Dr. Ali Lukes. If there's one thing couples love doing, it's stealing each other's shirts, and specifically hoodies, because there's comfort and eroticism in the scent of your beloved, especially when they are not in your immediate presence. In dom sub dynamics, simp play might involve having one's gym clothes pressed against one's nose whilst copulating. That's the driest, lamest way to say that. Oh, isn't internet censorship so fine? Says the man who is only vaguely trying not to offend the YouTube gods. Sorry. In the Omegaverse, humans produce observable scent-carrying pheromones. They can entice mates, start heats and mating cycles, and overwhelm others. I find some Omegaverse manga to be really funny because alphas walk around controlling their pheromones at will and using them exactly like spiritual pressure is used in Bleach. Oh no, Captain Sunsui is about to unleash his bankai on me. Ah. With pup play, scent can be somewhat important. Most obviously, this is because scent play can be a massive aspect of BDSM just in general, and scent, as one of the senses, can be a heavy factor in romance and eroticism in general. But if we want to be specific, pup play and role-playing the persona of a dog sometimes contends with, canine behavior. Shocking. What do dogs like to do? They sniff each other, sniff you, sniff the ground. They be sniffing. Scent is primal, isn't it? It's animalistic, even when unconnected to pup play. The Omegaverse, with its primacy of pheromones, something humans don't really have too much to do with as far as we can tell, is also a bit more animalistic than normal. Heats, heavy heats that need to be resolved. Power rolls based on bad psychology about wolves. Wolves, pups, primality. We need to talk about animalification. Delta. Return to nature. Animalification is a form of a transformation kink, and it's one of the more popular prevalent kinks in culture. It's the equal opposite technique of personification, where we humanize non-human objects. And animalification, we animalize human objects. Furries are a form of animalification. Werewolves, vampires, Kafka's Metamorphoses, much of Ovid's Metamorphoses, Playboy bunnies, all of these are forms of animalification, though not all of them are sexual, or at least aren't always sexual. Animalification in literature is a literalizing of the return to nature, a narrative trope by which a character, set of characters, or society casts off certain aspects of human social constructions, of civilizational building blocks, and behave in a more basic, primal, animalistic way. Oftentimes you'll see this presented in the air of horror and tragedy. The group stranded in the wilderness turn to cannibalism and other forms of animalism. The abused person who acts and reacts like a wounded, caged animal. There's also the savage who requires civilizing. And yeah, that one can often be an explicitly racist narrative. What is the appeal of werewolf and shifter romance and erotica? It's the return to nature. It's the animalification and the shrugging off of typical human sociological restraints. In Omegaverse fiction, the pheromones and heats are a form of animalification. They specifically serve the function of ridding one of self-control and restraint. Omegaverse fiction often coincides with ravishment fantasies and dubcon. Through animalizing, you can engage with an erotic fantasy with a bit of distance, so it's less scary and shameful. Vor fantasies are often another form of the return to nature. Predator-prey dynamics are dynamics specifically found in the animal kingdom. What about pup play? Obviously, the garb and the theatrical scenario are about animalification. The pup goes from purely human to an animalized subject, a pup. An article for The Stranger relates a pup's experience when they were first starting out, wherein their dom told them, "You're still thinking. You're thinking about how to do this and worried about looking dumb. Let go. Just react. Just play." That was one of the worst attempts at a voice I've done on this channel. I'm so sorry. Humans are creatures of worry. We have unending responsibilities. We are conscious of both our mortality and that of all those around us. In the age of social media and unending newscasts, we're aware of all the tragedies and mistakes and oppressions in the world that need to be addressed. It can be too much. Sometimes to remain human, you have to cast it off. You need to rest. Pup play presents an opportunity for rest. In returning to nature, the pup pushes aside their reasonable human concern. A dog knows nothing about the horrible crimes committed by governments around the world. A dog knows not of bank accounts or insurance. They know nothing about performance reviews or imposter syndrome. As far as we know, they can't and don't have any such thoughts. Have you ever seen a dog going, "Oh man, I'm not getting many YouTube views"? They are concerned primarily with play, food, shelter, and love. They're worried about cheering up those around them and protecting them. A pup can simply be. Humans cannot simply be. It's impossible. The closest we can get is through some form of meditative performance or escapism. Animalification can also allow subs to engage in certain forms of submission, like bondage or leash wearing, especially wearing one in a club perhaps, that they elsewise might be too self-conscious to engage in. Self-animalizing can help the anxious person actually pursue their desires. In that way, pup play is permission-giving. It's a form of meditation. Epsilon. Ritual. I think the most obvious question following that last thought I just spoke is, why the hoods then? You can give yourself these permissions and explore these personality traits without animalification, without wearing any gear whatsoever. Why do pups wear those kind of silly masks? On one hand, you can point to its anonymizing factors. Pup hoods tend to be full coverage. You can see my eyes, and that's about it. So for folks into anonymous intercourse, the pup hood can factor into that. It also makes it really hard to read facial expressions. So if you're not great at typical social signifiers via looks and contortions of the face, the hood can make you more comfortable in certain social situations. It allows you to maneuver these things how you naturally do without worrying about so-called body language experts trying and failing at interpreting you. As we all know from the internet, anonymity also breeds boldness. If one cannot see your face, it's easier to perform, act, and speak in certain ways. This will be important when we finally get around to talking about pups at Pride. The hoods also provide a visualization of the psychological animalification, making the process and play easier to engage in. It's also a form of BDSM, even if it's not always engaging in that scene, and so gear has a sort of historic position of importance. In a way, it's an evolution of typical leather culture, but I want to connect it to the meditative state. Donning the hood, eventually, I've been told, serves as a psychological trigger. It's like a hypnotic command, helping to drop the actor into their character. If relaxation does not come naturally to you, having a persona, whether that's in pup play or through a specific outfit like all the superhero cosplay you see twinks doing online, can serve as self-domination, forcing you to relax through being possessed by a character for whom relaxation and play are not simply easy, but natural. The act of putting on the hood is rarely part of the play. The dehumanization occurs before sexualization and is not necessarily even connected to it. It is a relaxative ritual. Part of the fun of rituals is their quasi-religious nature, and religion is sexy when it is blasphemed. Blasphemy is the realm of erotic. So let's talk about Playboy bunnies. Zeta, Nekomimi. Nekomimi are the anime cat girls. You've probably seen them. There are a bunch of Neko characters in Genshin Impact, for existence. Nekos are specifically cat people. The broader term, the term that would more accurately describe Playboy bunnies if the bunny part was anatomical, would be kimono mimi. What is the appeal of a Playboy bunny? While I am very gay to the point where I would go straight for her as a very foreign concept to me that I don't really understand, I can tell you very clearly that it's two things. First of all, bunnies are notoriously big on having babies. Secondly, and more importantly, bunnies are innocent. Pet play typically engages with cute animals, pet animals, innocent animals. Nekomimis are cute. Dog boys in anime, like the titular Inuyasha, may not be considered stereotypically innocent, but they carry a level of earnestness that does code as innocent, a type of innocence. Bunnies specifically have their white coloring to hide in this connection. White is associated with purity. Why is purity erotic? Because it can be defiled. Why is innocence erotic? Because it can be corrupted, and you can do that corrupting and defiling. Or if you're on the other side of things, you are something holy and precious that someone desperately desires. You are a holy shrine waiting to be destroyed. Now, there's a good chance those past few sentences make you very uncomfortable. It's kind of gross, isn't it? When I first got on the dating apps, I gave off an air of naive youthfulness that made me the recipient of a lot of vulgar desires from men attracted to the idea of the corruption of innocence. At the time, that was rather scary. Interestingly, as I've gotten less innocent, I don't mind that sort of thing as much because it has become a form of play. Sexuality often works that way. When it's real, it can be terrifying in a non-sexy scared way. When it's fake, when it's play, it can finally be erotic. And I don't mean by that like it's not real sex. I mean that it's not real innocence. So the explicitness of play in these scenarios also gives permission for those who find corruption, defilement, and blasphemy erotic to engage in sexual eroticism without getting overwhelmed with shame. Human pups tend to be earnest, happy, and performatively innocent. The colors tend to be bright. The hoods are a little goofy and absurd, like this looks crazy. Paw gloves, even more so. They carry innocence, and yet often they are openly sexual. You know they're not innocent. If you're a human, like playing a human, engaging with them, you know on some level that this is a performance. On a meta level, you recognize that this is an adult human engaging in kink. Any actions you take of corruption are likely not actually corrupting. When you take advantage of their innocence, it isn't real innocence. It's performed, it's a costume. So it doesn't carry the same shame or harm. Shame is the mind killer. Ada, sublimation. You can classify that shifting of the eroticization of actual corruption to recognized pretended corruption as a form of sublimation. To put this in brief, generalized terms, sublimation is the process of taking a socially unacceptable desire and shifting its energies into a more socially acceptable form. Now, the stereotypical Freudian version of this sees unacceptable, unconscious sexual drives unconsciously transferred into, say, artistic endeavors. The writer's barely concealed fetish. Well, that might not be an obvious fetish to said writer. It could be unexamined sublimation. Now, I tend to argue that sublimation can occur in other forms as well. For instance, personally, at one point in my life, I sublimated a desire for self-destruction into some impossible kinks. I'm writing a book on those. This allowed me to place those desires in a realm of impossibility. While it didn't result in a socially acceptable expression, it resulted in a safer and slightly more socially acceptable desire, shored up by the impossibility. Another example. Internalized homophobia can be sublimated into a degradation kink surrounding slur usage. Given that, I think it's perfectly reasonable to assume sexual desires can be sublimated into other sexual desires that are healthier or more socially acceptable. In this sublimation, they prevent the less acceptable drive from true expression. Let's go extreme, and then get back to pup play. Let's say someone finds a sexual thrill in the idea of corpses, necrophilia. What if this necrophile has unconsciously sublimated the desire to somnophilia, the sexualization of sleep? A somnophile can enter a relationship with some level of free use in the dynamic, or roleplay, or engage with the plenitude of erotic art covering sleep. The somnophilia can find expression without causing harm or risking total social alienization. Necrophilia cannot. Okay. Let's look at another example, one that people argue about a lot. Plenty of age play-based erotic films are creepy, yeah, and it's perfectly fine to dislike them or find them creepy, but age play can be a sublimated expression from a much more harmful desire that I think we can all agree is better off expressed through roleplay and maybe gross art rather than acted upon. Many people into vor do not have any interest in erotic cannibalism. However, someone who does have that drive may sublimate that desire into a vor kink because vor is impossible. You cannot swallow another human being whole and alive. The impossibility makes it safer and more acceptable to act upon because it is relegated to roleplay and art. Erotic cannibalism, if acted upon, results in mutilation and murder, two things, surprisingly, most of us frown on. So it's time to take that pin out from earlier. Yes, this has been a long time to keep a pin in something, but we kind of started talking about BDSM, so I just suffer through having a pin in me just for the meta commentary. got a title in, you know. Pup play is not about bestiality. That's a stupid and bad faith accusation. But let's pretend it isn't. What if pup play is an expression by some who would like to have intercourse with animals? Now, of course, animals cannot consent. Bestiality is rightfully shunned and seen as immoral. If one who is inclined to such an activity engages in pup play, are they hurting an actual animal? No, they're engaging with a consenting human adult. No harm is done. The desire has been successfully sublimated into a more acceptable and healthier expression. If all the handlers involved in pup play were having sex with the human pups as a way to satisfy their less acceptable drives, even if that makes you uncomfortable, wouldn't that be a good thing? Wouldn't we want to encourage this sort of sublimation? You can find things weird or gross or creepy and still believe they are ultimately healthy, or at least healthier. People don't like this sort of argument, though, because people don't actually care about sexual deviancy or harm reduction. They tend to care about having a group that is socially acceptable to be cruel toward, and so if there's an outlet for that group, which makes the group itself more morally and socially acceptable, that reduces the harm put out into the world, this can drive a sort of defensive outrage in the one who longs for cruelty. Speaking of deviancy and defensiveness, though, Theta, Kink at Pride. When people see people wearing pup hoods in pride parades, at pride events, and just in general, suddenly they start bringing out accusations of degeneracy. Puritan types over on Twitter get to saying that this is why homophobes hate us. Is that dumb? Yes, of course it is. Homophobia is not rational. Attempting to find rational explanations for it is a futile endeavor. What's actually happening here when queer people do this, and sex is icky and gay men are degenerates ruining queer rights and the queer community, is twofold. First, it is a puritanical aversion to sex and sexuality. That's plain conservatism that you have to get over. It's on you. Sorry. The second is that, faced with the fears of homophobia, these people need to find the bad gays that they can contrast themselves against. This way, they might be good gays. Dividing gay men up like this, or any minority to be clear, is an attempt at redirecting bigotry to another target, thereby saving themselves from harm. This is also what's at play when queer people use the F slur as a slur against other gay men. Some call that reclamation in the attempt of engaging in a magic trick, where if you look over here at this fancy word of reclamation, you won't notice their engagement with outright bigotry. To be clear, to reclaim a slur, you cannot use it as a slur. That's kind of the whole thing. It's just, using bigotry. Beyond that, though, pup play, wearing the hoods, is not inherently sexual. This has not been a sexual endeavor for me. Like, I kinda hate wearing this. The chemicals. When they march in pride parades, pups are embracing community outside of a sexual connotation. Pup play is often about building community. Remember when I brought up pup hoods and anonymity? It takes courage to march in a pride parade. It takes courage to be openly yourself in this world. Sometimes you cannot afford, for whatever reason, to have your face photographed as an out and proud gay person, so you don a mask. The mask provides bravery. The mask provides safety. The mask turns off the human anxieties about what it means to be queer in this world politically. I've sometimes avoided going to gay events or clubs out of anxieties surrounding mass shootings in this country. When the rhetoric is high and heavy, I retreat because I am fearful, very fearful of death, and unfortunately I'm a coward by nature. It takes great courage to show up and show out. Sometimes you need a ritual to summon that courage. Sometimes you need some way to cast off all your anxieties, no matter how understandable they might be, so that you can do the brave thing, so you might not miss out on life. So you might show the members of your community that you are there for them and with them. If you hate seeing pups at Pride, then it's time to embrace kink yourself and go in a blindfold. Woof fucking woof. Howdy, and thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, share if you're feeling saucy. You can join me over on Patreon if you would like, wherein you'll get these videos and others early. You'll also get to have some fun behind the scenes access to some of my art projects, some more personal vlogging style content, and you'll just get to support me and we'll get to chat about art a whole bunch, which is what I love to do most. You can go over to Amazon Smashwords or wherever you get your ebooks and purchase a copy of my poetry collections, Butterfly Snuff, and A Museum of Art and Eggs, both of which are also available in paperback and hardback. I have a second channel where I'm just reading through a bunch of public domain stuff for the fun of it and through my own work, so you'll get readings of these poetry collections and some short stories and some longer form fiction when I get around to it, and some plays. And I have a third channel where I'm uploading my music and art instead of having it all clog up this channel. So go support those if you feel like it. That content, a lot of it will also be getting uploaded early to Patreon. So if you want all of my stuff in one convenient space, Patreon is the place to go, which would be really cool of you, you know? I hope you have a fantastic day. Do not be rude in the comments. Do not go and harass anybody. And I will see you next time.